let's delve into the extraordinary with our 10th session, the Maverick Effect. This session is dedicated to exploring the unconventional path to entrepreneurial success, drawing insights from the book, The Maverick Effect. Our speaker, Mr. Harish Mehta, embodies this Maverick spirit. As the founder of Onward Technologies, he has consistently demonstrated the ability to think differently, to pioneer, and to disrupt. Through his book, The Maverick Effect, he distills this wealth of experience and wisdom, offering a blueprint for harnessing the power of Maverick leadership. His journey will inspire you, providing valuable insights into creating your own rules, taking calculated risks, and most importantly, passionately believing in your vision. Moderating this session is Ms. Padmaja Ruparel, a luminary in the startup ecosystem. Her vast experience and keen acumen, combined with her understanding of Maverick leadership, makes her the perfect guide for this dynamic discussion. Mavericks aren't born, they are self-made. Their paths forged by relentless passion, persistence, and audacity. As we navigate this enlightening session, we will uncover the journey of a maverick and learn how to use the Maverick effect to create impactful ripples in our business sectors and achieve unprecedented success. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. This is a session I have to really confess. It's a dream come true for me, Harish Bhai. I've known Harish Bhai now for almost 30 years. And I know him when I was very junior in a software company, which was chaired by a very good friend of Mr. Mehta, Mr. Srivastav. And from then on, it's been a relationship which has only evolved and grown. He's mentored, guided, and even today when I have any issue in the world, I go to him. So that's Harish Bhai as I know him. The world, of course, thank you. The world, of course, knows him very differently. He's a co-founder of Nasscom. He's brought TiE from the valley to Bombay and grew it. I will, really fail if I try and list everything out. He's a chair of the Nasscom Chairman's Council, which means that it's above the board, and he's chairing that. And he's on Iron Fund board. He's been one of our drivers. He's on the IC of Iron Fund. He's on a whole lot of issues, guys. So I'm not going to belabor the point because I know I will start embarrassing Harish Bhai at some point. So, Harish Bhai, today is a conversation which is very different, right? None of the conversations that we usually have about what to do in business, how to do in business. This is about a maverick writing about a maverick, right? Thanks. And I think I want to really try and see if I can delve a little bit deeper into what really got you going. So just to before I start that, I wanted to check with the TiE team. Is there a video Temeka? There is a video that was to be played for this session. Can we? Okay.
The Ayo Shraddha, do we have it?
Do you have the Ayo Shraddha video? It's very good. It'll get a lot of people.
Maybe we can start and maybe in between or maybe at the end we can show it.
Yeah. If you can keep it ready. Huh? Should we start, Kamal? Yeah, okay. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, as I said, you face some if you read the book, and I have, not once but twice. If you read the book, this is a book of not only the difficult times that your journey has been, but it's also something that you sort of created which was much stronger and much more lasting, right? And it reminds me when I read the book that success is not final and failure is not fatal, right? So I wanted to just understand from you, what is the secret sauce that you had through your life learned or you've got done, which is actually necessary ingredient to build companies, build institutions, build what you have done in various spheres?
I mean, it's no different than what the startups are doing in some way. You need to you have a vision, you have put the team together, and you have your marketing plan, and so on and so forth. I don't think there's frankly, any difference in terms of whether it's a non-profit organization like Nasscom or whether it is for-profit. Yes, each will have its own variations to handle, but fundamentally it is your passion, your self-belief, and putting a team together and then working towards it.
So, yeah, but isn't that what you missed most is the passion that you've had for anything you do? You know, if you read the book, to me the single thread that sort of ran right through the book was the passion. And, you know, for you to sustain that passion through so many ups and downs for the organization, I think to me that was something quite original.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then that's how Maverick has not only become a bestseller. I mean, you go to the airports, you see it on the bookshelves, but it's become more of a modern classic. And guys out there, it's a real read that you must do. What inspired you to write this Maverick Effect, and why was it so important for you to pen it down? It must have taken some months and years to sort of do it.
That's a good question. See, Nasscom started from my office in 1988. I have seen how India has changed from a country which was bankrupt on foreign exchange. There were no jobs in the country, known as the snake charmers. From there we emerged as a global tech powerhouse. I have seen how India has changed. I have seen how IT industry changed India. Now here I can give you some statistics. Today industry is at $250 billion. Our exports are more than Saudi Arabia. The difference is in Saudi Arabia the money goes in one account versus in our industry the foreign exchange comes to thousands of companies into millions of accounts. So democratizing wealth creation has been the contribution of the industry. If you look at it from the jobs perspective, industry created, as of now, 5.3 million high disposable income jobs. Now, if you look at each high disposable income job creating 4 to 5 additional jobs in the country and then each having a family of 4, our industry today supports twice the population of UK. But it is not seen because of the 1.4 billion size of the country. If you look at the seeds of cultural transformation that our industry has planted, today industry employs 37% women. And these women got the job not because they were women, but they got it because they knew the subject. They appeared for the test and they got it. They didn't have to know someone to get a job. Even like IIT Gardner's son became a software engineer.
True.
So that meritocracy has been injected into the country by our industry. If you look at corporate governance, our industry was the first one to bring in corporate transparency. So the financial quarterly report, the annual reports, which our industry companies started delivering, it started building trust in India Inc. as a brand. And the FDI money started flowing in. All this culminated into, I'll tell you some small story here where I was to attend the TiEcon in Silicon Valley. I took a taxi from San Jose airport to go to Fremont, where the TiEcon was. My taxi driver was a Sardarji, mid-age Sardar. So he asked me, "Aap kahan se aaye?" So I said, "I'm coming from Mumbai." "Aap kya karte ho?" I said, "I'm from the software industry." And then suddenly he says, "Aapne hame izzat dilai hai." Now I am scratching my head, what have we done to this Sardarji to say that we have created pride in him? So I asked him. So he said, where I live, the locality where I live, suddenly because of your industry, he said before that today any American who travels by taxi, he or she thinks that I am a PhD student doing part-time taxi driving. So that was the brand our industry built into the, let's say, USA. And today, place where I live, which is a sort of a number of minorities live, today I'm an equal now. People are respecting me as an Indian. So then I realized what our industry has contributed to even an average Indian who is not connected with our industry. So if you look at it from the IT industry itself, how did it grow? Industry delivered something like 30% plus compounded growth. Rakesh Junjunwala, he used to say that if you get 18% compounded growth, you are a king. If you deliver 21% compounded growth, you are an emperor. Here our industry delivered 30% for 30 years. And it still continue to deliver. Now, with that contribution, I believe very strongly it is Nasscom that has created this. And what is this? It is not other associations didn't deliver, but it is could not deliver, but Nasscom has delivered. And why Nasscom delivered? So that was the secret sauce which I have put in the book. Okay, what are the values and the practices of Nasscom that has delivered this compounded growth? So when I look at the entire picture, I believe very strongly that India changed because of IT industry and so on and so forth. So 4-5 years back, when I used to buy books written by public sector senior executives or politicians and whatnot, the first thing I would do in those days was look at the back index. Is the word Nasscom there? Nowhere. Is the word IT industry there? Maybe very slight reference. I said, oh my God, people are just not aware or sensitive about what the industry has done and what Nasscom has done. Now, there is an African proverb which says, if the lions had historians, the stories of hunting would not have glorified the hunters. So if we have not written the story, if the people don't know about it, while I'm not an author, I'm not a historian, I'm not an economist, so I took up that challenge of writing the book of the story of this, what I call inside story of India's IT revolution.
True, so true, and so much to learn. But you're so right also that I think the IT industry was not only the first generation industry, but it brought in a lot of firsts. You know, in the startup ecosystem, we talk about ESOPs all the time. It actually began with the IT industry. But, you know, when you read the book, The Maverick Effect, I think something which is very stark is it often talks about the trust and partnership that industry had with government. And you talked about Mr. Vittal and Mr. Singhal. Mr. Vittal, by the way, was the secretary of what was at that time called Department of Electronics. And Mr. Singhal was at that time chairman of BSNL. And how they sort of worked not only with you, but for you in some ways, right? You know, do you see a need for that kind of trust and partnership for the startup ecosystem today? And it's much more, it's also sort of stemming out from the IT industry's success.
Let me answer both the things. So when we started Nasscom, that time we had looked around, we studied all the various associations, and we found lots of weaknesses about other associations. Simple thing like when they recommend a policy change to the government, in 24 hours, either some members of the same association or some other members who are not part of the association would go and oppose that position. So policymakers were confused. On top of it, policymakers themselves were this colonial mindset, I would call it. So they wouldn't trust the business people. Profit was a dirty word in those days, socialistic, license Raj. So we had to bring in this dramatic change, and we realized we can only do it if we look at government as a partner, not you versus us, but we are together. So we did number of things to build that trust between us and the policymakers, starting with, in all our meetings, policymakers were invited without any invitation. It was a music to their ears. We come and attend your meetings, and so we say, yes, please come, then you'll know what our problems are. So like that, we also decided as an association, we will not start Nasscom till we have 80% of the top line. So at that time, TCS, Mr. Kohli was not ready to join Nasscom. When we waited 6 months, convinced him, and after he agreed to join, we started Nasscom. So we had an 80% voice. Now, when Mr. Vittal came in, we wanted a software export benefit to software companies because of plowing back into the export market, earning in dollars and earning in rupees, but it's very difficult. So we wanted the export benefit for the software companies. Now Mr. Vittal came back and said, I met our finance secretary, Mr. Bimal Jalan, and he said, if you do $400 million this year, you will get the benefit, it will be extended. Now we were at $150 million at that time. So we met as industry, all the executive council, and we said, how much can we do? And we realized we can only do $200 million. So I went back to Mr. Vittal, the time I was the chairperson of Nasscom. I said, Vittal Saab, we can't do it. Oh, you don't want the benefit? We said, no, we want the benefit, but we don't want to cheat you, we don't want to mislead you. Our people feel that maximum we can do is $200 million. But he said, but here is a made proposal which says they can do 400 million. Here is a software export promotion council saying they can do $400 million. And how come you can't do it? So I gave him a list of the companies. I said, here is a list of companies who represent 80% of the industry. They are saying they can't do it. Now, if these other associations and councils have other software companies who can do it, please go ahead and do that. Yeah. So Mr. Vittal felt these guys are different. The young kids are there, maybe I can trust them. He said, tell me what can I do for you? Now we had some 100 regulations strangulating us. He said, give me 3 of that. We said, no. You commit to us, we only one thing from you. He said, what? He said, you just commit to us that you will consult us before you make any policy change anywhere where the word software is. He said, that's all you want to recommend and not accept your suggestion. We said, fine, that's okay with us. But then that's how it got started. And Mr. Vittal started enjoying working with us so much. In those days, he was like God, and because for every small thing you want to bring in a spare part, you have to go to him for import license. And here, now suddenly he changed. And then in one meeting he announced like this, he said, I think the Nasscom stands for N stands for nuts, A stands for asshole, the next S stands for stupid, the next S for screwball, C for crazy, and then he said M for mad. And he said, and I am a leader of this group. So that's how we built that trusted partnership between the government and us. And then, of course, all these 100 regulations the next 2-3 years were all modified, removed, and whatnot.
Yeah, I think more than partnership, I think you guys positioned yourself at the center of policy making, So what is the Maverick effect? You've got this book, and to your mind, what is that real crunch of the book, which is Maverick effect?
So Mavericks are rebels.
Just 2 minutes, we'll finish, and then at the end we can do the video.
Mavericks are, later. Mavericks are rebels as such. They think out of box. Maverick effect is having these mavericks together and working. That's the difference. So in our case, we had fierce competitors from Kohli, Ajay, Murthy, cognizant of Lakshmi Narayana, everybody, all together sitting on a table, keeping India first, with no personal agenda, solving industry issues. Now let me give some examples here. It will take 10 minutes, I'm sure. The first, they said no personal agenda. What do I mean by that? So there was a delegation taken by the PMO to Russia to promote exports from India. So they took 2 delegations, pharma and IT. Now, when the IT delegation, Som Mittal was leading it, he was the president of Nasscom at that time. Now, typically, Som would give presentation to a crowd like this. But Som looked around and he saw Harish, who was the chairman of Accenture India and also chairman of Nasscom, was there in the delegation. He said, the chairman of Nasscom is here, so let him give a presentation. Harish, he looked around and he saw N. Chandra, he was the CEO of TCS at that time. He is here, the largest company in India, and he should give a presentation. So they approached Chandra. Chandra, would you give a presentation? Chandra said, of course I would do it. But then they said, there's one caveat. What is it? In this presentation, there are case studies of your your TCS is 4 competing companies. Would you
Right.
talk about it? Without blinking, Chandra said, yes, I'm speaking on behalf of India. This is what I mean by no personal agenda, that the kind of spirit we have inculcated at Nasscom. I'll give another story here. All the multinationals were asked to go out of India unless they dilute their equity. I'm going back to in the during this George
Yeah.
Fernandez's time.
George Fernandez, when Coca-Cola went out.
So now, some of these multinationals approach Nasscom saying, we have seen the great work you guys are all doing, so we would like to come back and start our back office operations. And since these are back office operations, we would like to have 100% equity. So would you recommend to the government? So we all met in the council. We said, hey, should we do it or not do it? Now, many of us were scared. If you allow them to come in, the first thing they'll do is take away all our good people paying double the salary. Even the business which you are doing with them, it may be under the garb of back office, may shift to their operations and we would be left holding the bag. So why should we? It's very easy to ask for protection. It was already there, so why should we go and change it? But in this group, because we were built in those days and still today as an independent, neutral, trustworthy Nasscom as a platform where the creative juices flow and people freely open and talk about it without bringing their personal agenda in it. And in that process, one person said, whoever develops human capital of India is us, and who doesn't is not us. So who is us? That was the question. Now at that time, in US also there was a debate, okay, who is us? At that time, the Japanese companies were doing very well, had big inroads in the USA, Honda, and other companies, Panasonic and whatnot. So they were saying, who is us? RB, IBM, Whirlpool, and whatnot. So there's a big article in Harvard Business Review about who is us. So that also prompted a thought in our mind, okay, who is us? And then we said, no, I think whoever develops human capital makes a lot of sense to us. So we asked Mr. Kohli, Azim, everybody, do you agree? Can we recommend to the government of India a policy change where we allow 100% ownership of MNCs in India for the back office operations? Everybody said yes. So we go back to meet our finance minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, and we say, this is our recommendation. At that time, one of the officers said, वापस देश को बेचने आ गए ऐसे किसके दलाल हो तुम? So we were ridiculed, frankly. But Manmohan Singh saw through what we were proposing. We were ready with data, facts, and all analysis about our vision. Because see, at that time, the outsourcing pie was $300 billion. We were hardly $300 million. So we could tell the finance minister that, listen, if we improve ease of doing business, these other segments will open up for us.
Sure.
So it's a win-win situation for everybody. And he agreed. Now today, that segment in India, we have 1,800 R&D centers. Their top line is $35 billion. Employs 1.2 or 1.3 million engineers. Some of them are now doing most advanced, I would say, leading edge work in India. Some of them are now representing their parent company's board and co-creating future for their parent companies. So that is the kind of contribution. Because of these fierce competitors set together, had the courage not to go with the protection, take on the best of best in the world, having that confidence that we can take on the competition and allow them to come in. So that's where the Maverick effect comes about. Okay, these Mavericks came together, worked collaboratively and solving the industry problems. And it went to an extent where China wanted to compete with India.
Yeah.
So China said, if India can do it, we are also low cost, they are also low cost, we can compete very easily with India. So they appointed Foresters as an agency. They were one of the leading research firms in those days to come up with a master plan, how they become number one globally. And you all know the strength of China. Once they decide to go after it, very difficult to stop them. John McCarthy, who was the CEO of Foresters, he told them, you cannot come, his view, China cannot compete with India until they create Nasscom equivalent counterparty in China. He said, I have not seen anywhere in the world IBM, Accenture, Capgemini, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, all sitting across the table and solving India's issues, industry issues. Unless you replicate that model, it can't be done. And then, of course, the final last story there was about how we handled and how we saved Satyam. But that's, and next time we can take it up. Yeah.
But I think to the larger point is that's what's made Nasscom a global leader in terms of an industry association. And honestly, there has been really no other association, at least to my knowledge, that has come anywhere close to it. So really, doff my hat to all of you, who've sort of come together and built what is probably one of the most iconic organizations of the country. So
really, in the world, really, I also I will go extend that.
Yeah, and Forbes listed Nasscom as one of the business, iconic business and economic events of independent India. So really doff my hat to that. But I quickly want to use every minute while I can of Harish Bhai. So Harish Bhai, you've been a successful entrepreneur, you've been an angel investor, and I for one know that you've made money. You've brought obviously IAN to Bombay. You've sort of you were an investor and a general partner in Infinity, which invested in companies like Avendus and India Bulls and India Games. You've been a investor, IC member of IAN Fund 1, Fund 2. I mean, you're deep into this whole investing in early stage startups. I think you're probably one of the best people, to my mind, who can talk about why is it so important and what is it critical to, why is it so important to invest in this asset class, and what is it that investors should look at when they are investing? In terms of, not only in terms of deals or sectors, I think that fund managers and all of us do a reasonable job. But I think from an investor and LP perspective, what would you think are the real critical factors, and why are you investing? Both time and money, for that matter.
There are a number of reasons, frankly. One is, of course, if you look at the new wealth that is getting created globally, especially in the Western world, substantial portion now it is coming from the startup world, angels and the VCs. Before the company goes public, substantial wealth is already created. The second is, I would say, on an average, the VC-funded companies have delivered 25x return globally. It's a fantastic return for a very short period. Yes, however, it does have a risk factor in terms of startups are high risk, high reward game. So my recommendation there would be that you work with an experts for your money management. You need to have a portfolio style of management style where you spread the risk over multiple startups. You have a fund who can help you, who has a professional VCs, specialized VCs, and a full due diligence process in place that will give you that on an average 25x return over a time. Also, the other reasons could be simply like stock market can be very volatile, while startups are really not impacted by what happens in the stock market. So it's a good balancing alternate asset class from that
short
perspective.
And long gestation periods,
And of course, the last I would say is the impact investing.
Yeah.
In a sense that if I'm running a company and I find some adjacent startups who can help me, I can invest very early in the game, understand where the technologies are going and what its power and what it can do, what it can't do, and use that knowledge in my company. Or simply that I love to support some of the, let's say, climate control, if that is my favorite passion. I would like to then invest in the companies to encourage so that climate control can come in. So a number of such reasons by which I would recommend strongly.
I see your point, because India has really got enough real problems which need to be solved. But what works in some part of this country will work somewhere else in the world for sure. Yeah. We are so diverse, we are so large. So we can really breed Indian-born startups which can go global. So I appreciate. And before, with IO Shraddha comes on, which none of us can compete, at least I can't compete with her, one last word to Calcutta startup ecosystem. What do you think you'd like to share with them, and leave it as a last thought?
I'll give you a suggestion, not linked with what your business, but in general, learning from the Nasscom story, I would recommend, at the peak of your career, invest 10% of your time building or growing the ecosystem exponentially, the way Nasscom did. Your business, and we don't want your money, we want your creative ideas of how do you change that ecosystem exponentially. Like from Nasscom perspective, we literally wrote the IT policies of 20 states. So when the new technology waves came, quickly we could get the manpower who is half, let's say, raw material available for us in the newer skills. We saw that you have to believe in theory of abundance, and the technology provides massive, in terms of abundance from that perspective. So not only you can grow by ecosystem growing, but you allow others to also take birth, and everyone grows in that ecosystem. So I would suggest you invest 10% of your time collaboratively, working with your competitors, selflessly in building the ecosystem.
So on that note, it's time for me to shut up, but do we have the video?
You have a courier.
Oh! It's from my new boss, biography of Nasscom. He's gifted this to the entire floor. And security check is already done, huh?
What is this? Nasscom?
That is American Stock Exchange.
Oh, this Mehta has done something in US Stock Exchange also.
Hey, that is NASDAQ. This is Nasscom. And the author is Harish Mehta. Ayo.
Oh, okay. You tell, what is Nasscom?
Nasscom is an association of software companies. Like, why do we have the Resident Welfare Association?
For imposing penalties and for spending maintenance money and facilities nobody has asked for in the first place.
No, what is it really for?
Resident Welfare Association is for welfare of residents to represent us in different public matters, that's all.
Correct. Think of Nasscom as a resident welfare association for software companies. Nasscom ensures that the government understands what these residents can do for the country and how the government can cooperate.
What our association is doing?
Crying because people are not paying maintenance.
And the software industry has contributed 8% to the country's GDP.
See, India makes more from exporting software than Saudi Arabia does from exporting oil. No other sector makes more forex or generates more employment for India than the software industry.
You people only are getting maximum appraisals, marriage proposals. You are also from same sector, no?
And women are able to pursue a career in a safe, equal opportunity, merit-based industry. No brokers here, thanks to the culture software industry has built.
Thanks to Indian parents who are putting their children in engineering. Pay seat, free seat. They should add one thanks page in that book. Correct?
Indian parents knew one day India will need more engineers than Saudi Arabia has oil. I would have laughed harder, but this mask is very tight.
But because of software only, so much brain drain has happened.
Because of software, too much brain circulation has happened. Indian techies have built such a solid reputation for Indian IT. Look at this. Krishnamurthy, who had become Chris after going to America, was now back to being Krishnamurthy for the Americans. They always needed us, but now they want us.
And Manohara wants to borrow that book after you have finished reading.
No?
What? Book circulation will only lead to brain circulation. Tilka.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Shraddha. And thank you, Harish bhai. Thank you not only for the session, but for helping create what it today is the face of New India. Thank you.
President TiE Kolkata, along with Mr. B. Hari, past President TiE Kolkata, to join us on stage to extend our appreciation. Harish Mehta is available outside. So if anybody wants to sign the Maverick Effect book, can approach him outside. The books are available in the goodie bags for everybody.